Recently, I was in London with over 72,000 crazy wrestling fans to watch AEW All In. And of course, while I was in London, I had to visit 3 more CEX stores for the crazy world of CX. We hit up Wembley, then we headed to Shepherd's Bush, and we finished off our trip in Hammersmith, looking to add some amazing games to my incredible retro and modern game collection. This is the crazy world of CEX. Welcome to my continuing mission to visit every CX store in the entire world. From the weird to the wonderful, the big to the small, I am here to visit them all. This is the crazy world of CX. Hello again, folks, and welcome back to the crazy world of CEX. My continuing adventure to try and visit every single CEX store in the entire world. And of course, I was at AEW All In recently, and that could only mean one thing. This time we were visiting 3 brand new CX stores in the heart of London. One of the biggest advantages of visiting London is the sheer number of CEX stores. Regardless of where you're staying, chances are there's going to be 2 or 3 within a short distance away from where you are. But herein lies the problem. Of course, there's loads of people in London, which means more competition of trying to find the best retro and modern video games in CEX. Just before we head off to London, I want to remind you folks, if you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, let's cross 3 more CEX stores off the list. The first store we are visiting this time is Wembley, because of course it is. We cannot visit Wembley Stadium without visiting Wembley CEX. And this looked like a pretty big store on the outside, and as soon as I started looking in the window, it looked like we were going to be in for a real treat. There was some really cool bits in the window here. I love this kind of Nintendo themed display here, and this caught my eye, a D&D book for just 22 quid. That's an absolute bargain, but this was one of the last things I was expecting to see in a CEX store, especially with the timing. So remember, I'd just been to AEW All In, and here we have a WWE Collector's Edition. If this is in good condition and complete, I really want to add this to the collection. I think we're in for a treat here. Let's head inside then. We're starting off in the Xbox Series X section. Nothing that really caught my eye, and so I scrolled down a little bit here, and you can see the lenticular cover of Resident Evil 4. If you've been watching the channel for a while, you know I'm an absolute sucker for a lenticular cover, and I'm also looking to build my PlayStation 3 collection. This was a pretty good selection of games here, but unfortunately there was nothing that I personally wanted for the collection, but it was good to see a decent sized PlayStation 3 section in CX in 2023. Moving on from the PlayStation 3 to the PlayStation 4, and again a really good selection of games here. This was a pretty big CEX store and had a really good selection of stock, including this game, Dead Rising Frank's Big Package. Yep, they definitely know what they were doing when they named this one, and I think that's a real bargain to go back and play all of these Dead Rising games in the best kind of way. And here we have somewhat of a hidden gem wrestling game. I don't hear enough people talk about Fire Pro Wrestling for the PlayStation 4. If you are looking for something different than the WWE 2K games, definitely check this one out. And moving on from the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 5, here we have a game. It's getting cheaper, people. It's now down to £10. But I reckon the Evil Dead game will get even cheaper. But I do want to play this before they shut down the servers, as this is sadly an online-only game. If this game had a single player, I'd have grabbed it ages ago. There was not a massive amount of stuff in the glass cabinet of dreams, except for this wireless N64 controller for the Switch, which thankfully they've come down to £58 now. At one point, I'm sure CEX were charging way over recommended retail price for these, which is a real shame, so I do want to grab one. A fairly decent OG Xbox section here in Wembley, and here is a game that I wish I'd grabbed so long ago, Scarface for the OG Xbox. It's definitely getting pricier now, £25, and definitely one I wish I'd picked up a long while ago. There wasn't anything too exciting in the PlayStation 2 section, mainly because I've added most of the PlayStation 2 titles that I already wanted to my collection in previous years. But there's always exceptions to that rule. Games such as this one here, Jack X, which I don't think you see very often. It's a pretty good price for £3. I would have picked this up, but unfortunately it didn't have a manual. And if this had been the GameCube version of Killer 7, I'd have definitely picked that game up, as you never ever seem to see the GameCube version of this amazing game. A quick peruse of the Xbox 360 section, because much like around the rest of the UK, the Xbox 360 section in here is getting smaller. I was confused what this was at first, but it's just a BioShock Infinite reversible cover. And again, I have a lot of the Xbox 360 games I already want in my collection, but it is games you don't see very often, such as this, Kengo Zero. I've never seen this game. I didn't pick it up this time, but let me know if that's a hidden gem or game I've just missed. I have never seen this in CEX before, an arcade machine in the store. Sadly, it wasn't turned on. I have no idea if it was working, but it was very, very cool to see. So you can see this is a pretty large store, a lot of DVDs and a lot of games, and a pretty good Switch selection, including this game, which I've never seen before, Road Redemption. I am going to take a bit of a chance on this one. It may be amazing. It may be terrible, but at the end of the day, the Switch has such a vast library. It's just fun to take a risk on a game like this I've never seen before, and who knows, maybe never see again. Now, there was one thing which I did not like about the Wembley CEX store, and that was how much retro was hidden on shelves behind the counter. It's so hard to see what's up here. I had to zoom in using my phone to see some of these titles, and this must have been why the Glass Cabinet of Dreams was so sparse. All of the decent retro is hiding up here, and I do mean the decent retro. I have never seen this console in the wild, let alone in CEX. An Amiga CD, a crazy find. Our next stop this time is the Shepherd's Bush branch of CEX, and as you can see, this is definitely a smaller branch from the outside. Now, this is one of those weird CEX stores where it looks really small on the outside, but trust me, inside it is a lot bigger. Looking through the window, some interesting bits here, but what I think was more interesting about this store is it looks really small, that it's incredibly long, and also has a downstairs section. Now, we all know most of the time in CEX stores, if it has a downstairs area, chances are it's going to be absolutely rammed with DVDs, and this place was absolutely stacked with DVDs. Like, this was an absolutely ginormous basement in this CEX store, and to be honest, they probably could have fitted more shelves in here. There was even a fairly large CD section, which is definitely not seen as often in CEX, or to be honest, anywhere. And it would be a shame if CEX stopped selling CDs altogether, because at the end of the day, they are something I still listen to, and it's hard to find them. Honestly, a fairly small PlayStation 5 section here, which is kind of surprising for a store this big. Not really anything to write home about here. Looking around to see if there's anything of interest. We've got Saints Row here, which when I think it gets under the £10 mark, I'll definitely pick it up. Until then, I think I'll pass. But this is how we normally judge a CEX store, by its Glass Cabinet of Dreams. You can see here a good start, a decent PlayStation 1 section. Sadly, no Platinum games I needed here. It's getting surprising seeing DS games and even 3DS games now in the Glass Cabinet of Dreams. Obviously a really nice selection of GameCube games here. A surprising number of the budget GameCube releases in here with those silver spines. Don't see them that often, and definitely not normally in those numbers. Some interesting Mega Drive games, quite a few of the high-end PS2 games as well. There was a really good selection of retro in here, including this PlayStation 2 game, which I've never seen before, so definitely one to keep an eye out for. Loads of consoles, some boxed N64 stuff, although sadly that Castlevania had seen better days. A copy of Mega Man 4, which is something you don't see every day, but again, sadly it had seen some better days. Metroid, some Wario, some Zelda, really good selection of Nintendo first-party games in here. Moving back to more modern gaming, we have the PlayStation 4 section, and honestly, there wasn't anything too remarkable in here, which was a real shame. The PlayStation 4 does, of course, have some absolute gems in it, but there was just nothing really to write home about here, which is kind of the nature of the beast when it comes to CX. You can go through some of these sections and just not really find anything. And this is nothing against this particular store, it's just CEX stores are all about what stock is bought in, and unfortunately there wasn't that much that was very exciting this time. There's a couple of Wii U games I hadn't seen before, a fairly decent GameCube section. If you remember, there was a lot of GameCube games, the higher end ones, in the Glass Cabinet of Dreams. These are more the kind of £5 to £10 games. There was a really good selection of OG Xbox games here, and again a lot of classics games. I feel like somebody may have traded in their entire collection of classic variants of games into this store. I was interested in this Jurassic Park game because that game has dropped in value so much. I think I paid like £30 for that a couple of years ago. I expect because at the time that was the last time we'd had a Jurassic Park building game, and now obviously we have Jurassic World Evolution and Evolution 2. Some fairly interesting PC bits here, including a big Urabox PC game, which I did pass on because it just didn't look overtly exciting. It was essentially just a box with a label and a CD in, but it was quite interesting to see a fairly sizable section of PC games and the weird PlayStation 4 section that went all the way around a corner. I did spy a steelbook hiding down here, but unfortunately it's one we already have in the collection. Moving on to the Xbox One, and there's some real bargains and some real bangers on the Xbox One in a minute. If you are looking for cheap gaming, the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, you can find some absolute bargains. And for my money, this is the best way to spend £4 on the Xbox One. Control. This is from the people who made Alan Wake, and this is an absolutely incredible game. Definitely worth picking up for £4. So unfortunately, much like the PlayStation 4 section, this time the Xbox One section was fairly unremarkable, which is a shame, but these things do happen. But heading over to the Xbox 360 section, this was kind of a different beast. This was really, really stacked. But that's the thing about CEX, you never know what you're going to find, and it depends on what day you go in. Like, I've never seen this game before, Armored Core Verdict Day. Now, unfortunately, it did have a reprinted cover, which is a real shame, but there were some really rare games in here, which I'd never seen before, but unfortunately they all had reprinted covers. And I think these are the kind of Xbox 360 games which in the years to come are going to get very, very expensive. The games you just don't see very often. Even though I picked up Bayonetta and Binary Domain earlier on a steelbook for the Xbox One for £10, you could pick them up for a little bit less if you bought the standard versions for the Xbox 360. And yes, both are backwards compatible. A lot of Call of Duties here, as you'd expect, but there was some real bangers hiding amongst the more common titles here, and I think it is these less common Xbox 360 games that it's worth keeping an eye out for, because this is probably the lowest price they're going to get. As people start to get their nostalgia for the Xbox 360 in future, they're going to go up. Every CEX store seems to keep their steelbooks in a different way, and randomly this store seems to keep the sleeves on the shelf and not the steelbooks themselves, which is a bit of a weird decision. Yes, it stops the steelbooks from getting damaged, but these are super flimsy, and these will definitely get damaged. Again, another rare Xbox 360 game here, and again, another reprint, a real shame. The final section we checked out this time was the PlayStation 3 section, and it seems I was right. They put the sleeves on the shelf rather than the steelbooks here. You do you, CEX, whatever works for you. Now, I did pick up a PlayStation 3 game here I've been looking for a while. Sadly, it wasn't 50 cents this time, but that is a game that is slowly going up in price. It was Final Fantasy X and X2, the HD remaster. I've been wanting to go back and play these games, and with these HD remasters, the Final Fantasy story is timeless, and it's just good to have the updated graphics. Here's our final stop, this time in London in Hammersmith. So let's head straight to the window and see what this store is displaying as the pride of their sales. So we have a PlayStation 5, we have some N64 games down here. You'd think I'd be more distracted by Paper Mario, but I'm actually intrigued by this PlayStation 1, inverted commas, game here, Myst. I've never seen this variant of a PlayStation 1 game, because I did later find out it was a PC game. It was incorrectly labelled, so let's hope when we head inside this store that everything is correctly labelled. Heading inside, you can see some more really good N64 games, some nice box NES games, some really good Nintendo stuff in here, but sadly nothing I really wanted to pick up. I'm looking more for the boxed N64 stuff these days, so I did pass on all these loose carts, but if you are a loose collector, there was some really good stuff in here, including Super Metroid for the SNES. But let's move on to the PlayStation 5, and here is a game I've been meaning to pick up for a long while. Now, when this first released, it was a bit of a glitchy mess, so it's one of those games I'm kind of hoping with possibly many patches is pretty good. But let me know in the comments down below if you've played this Dungeons & Dragons game, Dark Alliance. I'm really tempted to give it a second go. Moving on to the Wii U section, here is a game that I wish I'd picked up a long while ago. I think this game was like £30 or £40 about a year ago, and really shows that Wii U games are going to get more expensive. This is now up to £58. And these are the kind of Wii U games which I think are going to get super expensive in the future. Games like Rayman and Yoshi's Woolly World, because they're fairly common, probably going to stay around the same price. Same with GameCube. Like, years ago, a lot of these GameCube games were super cheap, and that was the time that I built up my GameCube collection. Like, I don't think I could have a bigger game collection than I have now for the GameCube if I'd had to pay today's prices, but that's the thing about buying games when they're cheap. Games like for the original Xbox and the Xbox 360, games like this, Predator Concrete Jungle, is still fairly cheap at the minute, but I think in 5-10 years time, a lot of these OG Xbox games are going to get super expensive. This was a cool little steelbook, the Doom one for the original Xbox, but sadly it was missing the slipcover. And here's another Xbox heavy hitter, Panzer Dragoon Auto. Now unfortunately this was missing the manual. I was pretty tempted to pick that one up because a lot of the Panzer Dragoon games are super expensive. Now there was a really good Xbox 360 section in here, including some stuff you don't see very often, like this Halo 3 and Fable double pack. If this had been in better condition, because I don't know if the video does it justice, it wasn't really in the best condition, but if that had been in better condition, I'd have picked it up, because it's one of those kind of oddities, a rarity you don't see very often like this. I've never seen before. I was very tempted to pick this up, but like I said, this is one of the only steelbooks I actually found in any of these CX stores this time. Going through the PlayStation 3 section in Hammersmith, not really anything too exciting here. This Dragon Age Special Edition was pretty cool, but sadly it did look a bit rough, and I think the only difference between that and the standard version was some digital DLC, which I'm sure has probably expired by this point, but I always take a time to look through the PlayStation 3 section just in case there's anything I'm missing from the collection. Not much to report on the Xbox One. I was tempted to pick up this Disney Classic Game Collection, but I don't know if I'm ready to relive the pain and the punishment that is these games. They were some tough games. The Disney 16-bit games were super difficult. If you have never played them, go back and check them out. They are absolutely crushingly hard. Speaking of going back, here is a game I've been meaning to play for literally years, Okami. This looks like an absolutely beautiful game and a kind of Capcom hidden gem I've never played, and what better way to play it than with an HD remaster on the PlayStation 4. So there we have it. That was 3 brand new CEX stores crossed off the list in the crazy world of CEX. This train home was so long, I reckon I pretty much could have walked all the way back to Norwich, but that's exactly what we're going to do now. Head back to Norwich and head to my local CEX store and see what's hiding inside. And I've thought about it. I'm very tempted still to pick up this Dungeons and Dragons Dark Alliance. I decided to pick it up. I took it to the counter and they couldn't find the disc. It might have been fate, maybe I was just not meant to pick this game up yet, so hopefully this one drops a little bit in the future. I think next time I see this, if it's under £10, I'm definitely going to pick it up. But it was in the PlayStation 4 section. I found a game which I've been meaning to pick up for ages. It's from one of my favourite franchises that no one talks about, the Earth Defense Force games. Now let me know, would you have picked up the standard version or the PlayStation Hits version? For me, I went for the standard. I like the white sleeve. So there we have it. 4 CEX stores visited and some amazing bits to add to the collection. Let's take it back to the games room for them pickups. Here we are then, back in the games room from London and from AEW All In, which was absolutely amazing. It literally took my breath away. I lost my voice for about 3 days afterwards. It's one of the best wrestling events I've ever been to, and it was amazing to be a part of one of the biggest wrestling events in the history of the sport. And even better, while in London, we hit up 3 brand new CX stores and managed to add some amazing bits to the collection. Of course, having visited Wembley Stadium to go to AEW All In, I had to visit the Wembley CEX. And this was one of the best stores I visited in this weekend. I managed to get some really nice bits from here, including something I've never picked up from CEX before. And it's this Dungeons and Dragons book. That's because the CX price on these books, this one was £22, is so much better than they are on Amazon. This book is nearly 40 quid on Amazon. And this is an absolutely amazing edition. It doesn't look like this has been read or played with at all. And these books are incredibly useful if you are playing D&D, which I do periodically. And for £22, they're an absolute bargain. So definitely, if you play D&D, keep an eye out on CX for these bargain books. Only I could visit an AEW wrestling event and pick up a WWE Collector's Edition for the PlayStation 4. This is WWE 2K17 NXT edition, and I'm slowly trying to get all of the WWE 2K Wrestling Collector's Editions, and these are getting harder and harder to find. So I was so surprised when I saw this in the window of the Wembley CEX store. This is fully complete. I'm going to show you some of the awesome bits that come with this Collector's Edition. So the main selling point of this collection is this absolutely incredible Finn Balor statue or figure, depending how you want to kind of look at it. It has an absolutely incredible box, and this is a really cool figure. NXT in 2017 was absolutely crazy, and this really defines what was one of the best periods of NXT wrestling. Also in this collector's edition, you get a piece of WWE history. You get a piece of the ring from NXT TakeOver London. As a wrestling fan and a game collector, this is super cool to have in this collector's edition. But the coup de grace, if you excuse the pun, of this collector's edition is this signed picture of Shinsuke Nakamura. Now, unfortunately, you can see this has been, it's hard to say, but it's been bent inside this collector's edition. I'm going to place this under a big pile of strategy guides, and hopefully I can flatten this out, as this is a super cool collectible to have as a wrestling fan. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you might have caught my other CEX series, Steelbook Hunting in CEX. Now, when I went to London, I was hoping to film another episode for that series, but spoiler alert, unfortunately I only managed to find one steelbook the entire weekend while down in London, but it's a big one. It is the Bayonetta Vanquish double pack. I've been looking for this for the Xbox One for a long while, because I don't know if I did this justice in the video, but this steelbook is one of the best looking steelbooks ever. Like, the Vanquish side is very cool, but the Bayonetta side is even cooler. For my money, this is one of the very best steelbooks I've ever seen. And even better than that, these are two amazing games that everyone needs to play. Like I said then, the Wembley CEX store was absolutely fantastic. I still have one pickup from that store. It is a bit of a Switch blind buy. I literally judge this one by the cover. I don't know if this is a good or a bad game. It's a game I've never seen before, but it looks like a spiritual successor to Road Rash, so hopefully it's not terrible. It is Road Redemption. This is one thing I love about collecting for the Nintendo Switch. I'm always seeing games I've never seen before, and you know what they say, as a collector, the time you see it is the time to buy. The Shepherd's Bush CX store may not have been as good as Wembley, but I did manage to pick up a game for the PlayStation 3 that we're meaning to pick up for a long while. And I think now is a great time to collect for the PlayStation 3, as a lot of these games are about as cheap as they're ever going to get. And to be honest, the only way these prices are going to go is up, especially with some of these bigger franchises, such as Final Fantasy. So here we have Final Fantasy X and X2, the HD remaster. And here's the thing, with most of these Final Fantasy games, the story is absolutely timeless. So being able to go back and play this classic PS2 in HD graphics on the PlayStation 3 is worth the £5 price tag. We're sticking with the HD remaster theme with our final pickup from Hammersmith CEX, Okami HD for the PlayStation 4. That is because, it's embarrassing to say, but this is one of the greatest video games that I have never played. I've heard nothing but good things about this game, and at the end of the day I want to go back and experience it in the best possible way. Again, this is more a game that's all about art style, so to be able to play this in full HD is just going to make the experience that bit more beautiful. Of course, on every episode of the crazy world of CEX, we always end up in my local store of Norwich, and this time is no different. And I managed to pick up a game from a series which I wouldn't say is a guilty pleasure of mine, because it's an amazing series. It is fully tongue-in-cheek, it knows what it's doing, it's crazy. It's the Earth Defense Force game series, and this is the very easily named Earth Defense Force 4.1, The Shadow of New Despair. If you have never played an Earth Defense Force game, they are the definition of crazy. It's essentially building-sized robots, insects, aliens, and you fight them with rocket launchers, helicopters, mechs, tanks, anything. The buildings collapse. The graphics are graphical. It's not the best looking game, but it's the amount of chaos in this game, which is just why I absolutely love it. And even better, the speech and the cutscenes in this are beyond stupid. It's one of those games, I wouldn't say it's so bad, it's good. It's cheesy, but it's awesome. There we have it then, folks. That is another 3 CEX stores crossed off the list of the hundreds that I have to visit around the world. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, hit that like button. Who knows, maybe next time I'll be hitting up your local CX in the crazy world of CX. See you all soon.